people can see the artist talk. They weren't able to make it today.
Wait a minute, I have to mute.
All right. So hi, everyone. I'm Lilia Perez. I'm the Grants and Programs Manager at Arts Mid-Hudson. And it is my pleasure to organize this show for Poets Respond to Art this year. It's our 4th year doing this kind of a show. And so I just wanted to show you all really quickly as I move to our virtual gallery that we have a new website. So if you were using the old one, I think you'll like this one a lot better. And we're really excited about it. And so you can find the show on our page under events and then Poets Respond to Art. And we're going to leave this up. We put, July 9th as a closing date, but it will likely remain up a little beyond that. So if you're an artist in the show and you want to send people to the virtual gallery, this will remain up. And also if you're an artist and you want to put the virtual gallery on your website, email me and I can help you to do that. So here we have it on our page and we're just going to enter and take a look at the show together. And what we'll do is go around and as we get to each poet and artist pairing, we'll ask the poet if they're here to read their piece so we could hear it again. And then we'll ask the poet and the artist to kind of talk about the piece, their own pieces and their process for this project. And so I think we'll just get started. Actually, Lucia, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, Dr. Lucia Cercio is our Dutchess County Poet Laureate, and she helped us put together this show and wrote a beautiful introductory poem for the show. Would you like to read it again today?
Or sure, if you want me to.
Yeah, I think it's, I would love, if the poet's here, I would love to hear all the pieces in the show. So if you'll just give me a second, I'm going to actually enter the wider screen. And I'll pass it to you, Tia.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming on such a beautiful day. I am grateful to Art Mid-Hudson for all the work they have done. I am grateful to Lilia and to Linda and to everybody at Art Mid-Hudson for working so hard. I am gonna read an ekphrastic poem called Spring is a Reminder of Paradise. When I take off my glasses, it's all a blur. The framed picture recedes the way the airplane takes off when we leave. My uncle sent me a picture he took. A talented photographer before everyone used smartphones when pictures were rare. A haystack enclosed by a fence in the center of a meadow so the wild animals don't get to it in the middle of winter. Surrounded by cowslip flower, in the foreground, the landscape is the pure image of home. Like everything left behind, the yellow flowers hold the kindness of regret. Garden forsaken. The person who gathered that hay didn't return to feed the animals. A truce with time, the flowers pledge that this year will be better. We'll celebrate spring with rituals and ceremonies, innocence, laughter, stories, dance, generosity, maybe loneliness. Maybe the way he collected so many broken TVs and gadgets in need of repair is like the drafts left unfinished, projects left unrevised, invitations not honored, questions left unanswered, questions I didn't ask. Revising a draft is like returning home every summer. 1 year we're together, sitting around the table under the willow tree, and the next year we face the empty side of the table, the echo of surprises, the silence of promises. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Lucia. All right, so we'll continue on. And forgive me, I'm going to ask if each artist or poet is here, because we're fortunate to have so many people in the show, and I just want to make sure I don't miss anyone. So our first piece is by Pamela Wallace. It's titled Remembrance of Blue. I don't think I see Pamela here, but if you're here, please speak up. And then Kirsten Meehan responded to this poem, to this piece with her poem Palinposipia. Are you here, Kirsten? All right, then we'll move on to the next pairing, but I encourage you, all the ones, if the artists aren't here, you can come back and review their artist statement and their statement for the poet. Lauren Basquiani, are you here? And if you are,
I'm here.
hello.
Hi.
Could you talk a little bit about your painting?
Sure. My painting is Sunrise Through the Oaks, and it's inspired by actually the oak forest in my backyard. I just moved into my house in the fall, and I wanted to stay up on the very first day for the sunrise. And so this painting is that sunrise, the first morning at my new house.
Nice. And Mike Dracovic wrote a poem responding to this called Shadows Cast. I don't think he's here, but if you would like to see him read it, it's in our recording of the first poetry reading that we had for the opening. Did you have any thoughts about the poem or anything, you want to say about the process of the show?
I loved the process. I thought the poem was incredible. My favorite part was where he spoke of the ancient warriors, and I sort of imagined the big oak trees being the ancient warriors, sort of with the sun rising behind them, starting a new day. I thought it was very fitting. I didn't actually get to work with him or speak with him, so it was just a nice surprise to see it during the first reading.
Great. All right. I think we'll move on. Thank you so much, Lauren.
Thank you.
Okay, Robert, are you here? And I think I see.
Sorry, I'm muted.
Yeah, great. We can hear you now. Could you talk a little bit about your photo?
Sure. I use very simple processes, pinhole and zone plate photography. I think most people remember pinhole photographs as being like the oatmeal box camera, which I don't do. I actually have kind of a sophisticated camera that's made in Hong Kong. And I use it because I like the softness and the graininess of the imagery that I get with that camera. I'm in love with photographic process. And not only do I pose for my own photographs, I develop the film and I print the photographs. So I'm involved in every step of them. And the photograph itself is a lithium palladium print. It uses a lithium emulsion, which is a very expensive photographic metal. And every print is hand printed and they're very unique. No two are really totally alike. They always differ a little bit in tone and grain and that kind of thing. But I love the image. I don't think these photographs look like a lot of other photographs.
Yeah, they have a really, you've been a few shows, so I've noticed how they all have a really different quality. And I'm looking, we've had you in a few of our shows while being virtual. So I'm excited to see these in person when we return to in person, which will hopefully be soon.
So they're very small. I mean, it is big. So they're 4 by 5 inches and just everything about them is handmade. So I really hate inkjet prints and that kind of stuff. So the process is wonderful.
And I do not believe Rebecca Watkins is here. Her poem Embrace she wrote to respond to this piece. Did you have any thoughts, Robert, about the process?
Oh,
or-
I thought her poem was fabulous, and I wish I could write about my photographs the way that she wrote about this one, and I can't. And I'm so jealous of her skills. I actually went out and bought her book, and she's a wonderful writer, and I'm just so pleased that she chose my photograph.
Oh, that's so exciting. Great. Yeah, so thank you so much, Robert. And
Thank you.
again, you can go back and read this poem on your own if you're watching, or watch her read it in the opening.
I will.
Thanks, Robert. Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for involving me in this.
Thanks for participating. All right, Rita, I think that you are here. If you could please unmute.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Hello. And I do believe Matt is here.
I am here.
Maybe we should start with Matt, if you could read the poem,
Okay.
and then we'll ask Rita and yourself to speak about it.
Longing. There is an emptiness as if a husk yearning to enfold, soul seeking from deep in its hood of flesh or fabric, arms folded as if to hold in hands crossed at the heart. Waiting, always waiting. And what is it will fill this void? What is it would change this doleful pose?
Thank you, Matthew. Rita, could you talk a little bit about your piece?
Sure. I've been making ceramic sculptures for many years, and I basically feel like I make a form and then I wait for the clay to tell me what to do with it. And the interesting thing about having a poem written about it is that it's such a internal process for me that I couldn't possibly put in words what it was. I just know how it feels to me inside. And so to hear Matt's poem is to hear how somebody else perceives it, what they see in it. And there's no one way to see it. I think whoever looks at it is going to see what they see. And Matt's vision was very powerful and very simple, which I think is fitting for this because it's a kind of simple, a simple pose. It's not very intricate in its pose. It's just kind of the clay calling forth what it wants to be. So thank you, Matt, for the lovely poem.
Thank you for the lovely piece of art. I find it to be a very evocative piece. As soon as I saw it, I really hoped that it was still available to write about. And it, actually, Rita and I know each other from
Yes.
a long time ago, so it was really great to discover that the piece I really liked was by somebody I know.
Yes, and it was neat to have you write the poem. And evocative is exactly the word that I use for my pieces often, because it's what it evokes in everybody who sees it that's important.
Matt, did you want to say anything else about your work or about your process?
I've written a number of pieces about artwork or photography, mostly about photography. In fact, a couple of my chapbooks are photographs with accompanying poems. And I like the process of writing about art that stirs me to write. Not all art does. At one point, I wanted to write about Winslow Homer's art, and I haven't had a single poem stirred. I like his art, but it for some reason it doesn't draw poems out of me. This piece certainly did.
Thank you both so much for being in the show and for your thoughts this afternoon.
Thank you for having us.
Great. Okay. So the next piece is by Mary Altabelli. Mary, are you here? I see a Mary.
Yeah, I'm here.
Great. Great. Could you talk, let me just check actually, is Mary Louise Kiernan here?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, excellent. Okay, so Mary Louise, if you could start by reading your poem, and then we'll talk about the two pieces.
Okay. I prefaced the poem with some definitions of the word shroud. To dress for burial shelter, to clothe, cover, protect, conceal. A ship's mast unshrouded, without rigging, was said to be naked. Search for the shroud. Come inside the gallery with me, and I will tell you what I can see. A beauty fading in violet day, a beast stealing her stolen breath away. A female figurehead torn from its prow, a bestial storm claims the wreck is mine now. A merwoman spawns from a surging lair, a birdfish draws breath from the swirling air. A naked, wind-taken woman sightless, a bound, blinded man, open-eyed, hapless. A curve of pink flesh suspended over a gorge of bruised angles under cover. A fantasy world in all its fury, a reverie not ready to bury. Now, share me, tell me what you see beside me inside the gallery.
Thank you, Mary Louise.
Thank you.
Mary, could you talk a little bit about your painting?
Yeah, like so many people, COVID year was pretty rough. And after a 10-year relationship, the person I was with disagreed with my politics and left me overnight. And the devastation of that horrible feeling of being the beast throwing me out, I did what most creative people did. I went into the studio and processed what I was experiencing. And I took the whole experience and gave it that creative form that we do as artists. And the darkness was there and the emotions. And by this painting, it kind of like lifted me out of that, saying, yes, I have that inner strength as an artist, as a woman. And I always have had that, and painting and the creative process is that strength, is me. I cannot separate the two. And by doing this painting, it gave me a whole new feeling of life and living. And, oh, so what? He left. Let's go on. Let's move on. And so it was a wonderful revolution. And I think her poem really sums it up beautifully. The beast below and the contrast between the two shapes is exactly what I wanted. The beast of the depth of the emotion, and then the living. And yes, I'm still alive. I'm still strong. I will still continue to paint and draw from my inner strength. So I really thought the poem was a perfect match setup. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Louise, do you want to talk about the process at all, or your piece?
I would love to. This was my first choice. I instantly connected with the painting. As soon as I saw it, I thought, this is the one. It's very intimate. Clearly the woman is exposed, she's there naked in so many ways with her emotions, not just physically. And I still find it very intriguing. And I didn't know the backstory, and I wanted to know, but at the same time, I thought if I were standing in a gallery with someone, we'd be talking a lot about this painting, trying to figure out how many levels there are to this. And I mean, at a very basic, you could say, well, opposites are attracting here, or are they repelling each other? It's kind of, it's very mysterious and very complex. And I just feel very fortunate that I was able to write about Mary's painting. And as I said last time, I hope we get to meet one day. And will this actually be in a real gallery? That's my question.
We don't have plans to put this show in a gallery, but I honestly, that's an interesting question. It's not something we've really talked about. But we'll think about ways to get this group in person, because the thing is, there's been quite a few groups that haven't been able to have an in-person show. So I would love to be able to get at least some of the artists that have shown with us over the past year in some form or another. So that's a great question. Thanks for asking.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Any other thoughts from either of you about the process or your work, or anything coming up?
I think I've said what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you both. Okay.
You're welcome. Thank you for having us. That was wonderful.
Great. All right. Our next piece is by Stacy Flint. Stacy, could you unmute yourself?
Hi.
Hey, Stacy. Let me just check, but Janet, are you here? I don't believe Janet's here. I don't think so. So Stacy, could you talk a little bit about your work and about this piece?
Sure. Well, this piece is called Divine Conversation. And my piece is generally what I wrote, what I say about my work, about my creative process is I paint for the joy of creation, to satisfy the eye, to engage in childlike imagination, to feel free, to use juicy color, to connect and inspire people, and for the love of art. And I paint from ordinary subjects to express and communicate my passion, which is love through art. Most of my painting is, the colors are always vibrant, but a lot of them are much more, primaries and are like have these are two, but this is a little bit darker than what I normally do. But it was meant to be more of an introspection. Like the energy in most of my art is very outward, and this is outward as well. But since it's dark, it's a little bit more, it's meant to be a prayer, honestly. So it's called Divine Conversation. It's the earth reaching up toward the heavens, and that, energy of, of yearning, of longing, of opening, of surrendering, releasing, in conversation with heaven. And there is heaven with stars, and with a kind of a little answer there with a beautiful shooting star, which to me represents hope and love. So that's what Divine Conversation is for me. That's what I meant to be doing.
And so what did you think about Janet's poem, and what was the, the reaction like, seeing someone react to your work?
Well, lamentation, the definition is that it's about sorrow. It could be a poem or a song representing sorrow. And to me, and I guess she responded because she connected with maybe perhaps the prayer aspect of it, or the kind of like a releasing or a uplifting of sorrow, and maybe just feeling deeply the sadness, and hopefully a little bit of hope that came with it. I see, she's looking at blue infinity herself, and maybe there's an answer there for her.
Yeah, that's, the word pray is in the poem. So it's interesting that I think the theme is, but like the emotion behind it is different from each person's perspective, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you, Stacy. Is there anything that you have coming up that you want to let people know about, or anything else you'd like to say?
Thank you. Well, I just finished an event from the Roost and Mohonk Preserve. It's actually not finished, but there was a plein air event yesterday,
Yes.
Painting at the Mohonk Preserve, and the paintings are up for auction until the 26th. So they can be bid on, the paintings. And so I did one of the Mohawk Tower, not the Mohawk Tower, the Testimonial Gateway. If anybody ever goes to New Paltz and sees, looks like a little castle in there. And so I painted that. And then I'm in 2 shows with Long Reach Arts, which is a 30, or actually 40 this year-old co-op in Ulster and Dutchess County. So I have 2 shows with them, one of them at Unison in New Paltz, and one of them at the Boardman Library in Poughkeepsie.
That's great, Stacey. Yeah, and definitely check out for people watching that plein air festival that just happened yesterday. You can find it on Roof's website and on their social media. I saw a lot of our artist friends producing really beautiful pieces yesterday, so that was exciting.
Thank you, Lilia.
Yeah, thank you, Stacey. Okay. All right, next we have this painting by Jerome Goldberg. Jerry, could you unmute yourself?
I'm here.
Great.
Oh.
And I believe, let me check, is Patricia, are you here? Usually. Don't see her, so could you tell us a little bit about your work?
Oh, sure.
And,
I'd be happy to.
And maybe talk a little bit about what you thought of the poem.
Well, I really enjoyed the poem and it was beautiful. And I found a lot of similarity between my painting and the poem. And I'll go into that in a second, but the name of the painting is Memories One, and her poem is also about memories of what sounds like an unfortunate relationship. When I painted this, the reason it's called Memories One is because much of my painting is either abstract or impressionistic. And I decided that I needed to do some things that actually looked realistic to some degree. And so what I did was I went through a lot of my old photographs from various trips that my wife and I have been on and picked them out, and I printed them and then tried to paint from the photograph. So this isn't exactly as the site where the pictures I was taking was taken, but it's close. And it was taken back in 2016 in August, also a summer trip as is in the poem. And I was taken to Arches National Park in Utah. So I tried, as I said, tried to make a realistic painting from the photograph. And like the poem, which talked about their planning the trip in the winter. Now, we did not collude, but I just was amazed after I read how many things were similar. We planned this trip with another couple almost a year beforehand during the winter time, and had all our expectations and thoughts and everything going into it. And then we went on the trip, and it was a great trip. The one big difference between the poem and our experience with the painting is that we and the other couple are still good friends. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
That's interesting. And you know, this your painting resonated with the gallery, the selection group. I at least when I saw it, it really reminded me of, you know, like a trip I've been yearning to go back on, you know, to kind of get out of this landscape that we're in the Northeast entirely. And so we thought it would evoke some travel memories in a writer, and clearly it did. Quite different than your travel memory, but very interesting.
Hers had a sad ending.
Yeah, as they sometimes do, and that makes for good art as well. Any other thoughts or anything else you'd like to let?
I appreciate the opportunity to display my work, and I really appreciated Patricia's poem. I think it's a nice way of combining the two different forms of art into one showing.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you to you.
All right. Anytime. Next, we have this photograph by Maureen Lohan Bremer. Are you here, Maureen?
Yes. Hi, Lily. I am here.
Hi. And I believe that Penelope is here as well.
Hi. Yes.
Great. Penelope, could you please read your poem, and then we'll speak to both of you.
This is called The Lake, and it's in 2 parts. 1,
crossings. Gretel clutches the key to Hansel's cage and tears through brambles, pulling him, searching for home. Feather beds, Windsor torts, and lullabies. Deep in the witch's forest, summer lounges, lush and green. The leaves whisper conspiracies. A white-throated sparrow calls its sweet longing. They find shelter under the wings of a hemlock. Search for the lake where winter has begun, has reached the trees at the shore's edge first. Gretel sees them, white and bare. They lean in the lake's wind. She knows when the lake freezes, they can cross. 2. Beauty's father contemplates the realm of the beast. I have ridden all night in the falling snow. I glimpse a yellow eye, a gray flank, wolves. I know if I stopped and dismounted, they'd make their move. My saddlebags are empty. I ride toward the disappointment of my children, their lost lives, lost positions, unredeemed, the grinding work in the fields. At daybreak, I stop at a frozen lake. The sky has cleared. The moon floats transparent in the blue. Snow glitters across the frozen field of ice. I am numb with cold. The wind bites, but suddenly I smell earth and growing things. Roses. I swear I smell roses. Across the lake, beyond the white winter trees, I see the foliage of great oaks and maples in full leaf, bending and tossing in the wind, flashing yellow in the sun. Green, so sweetly green.
Thank you, Penelope. Maureen, could you talk a little bit about your work?
Sure. So this image was captured in camera using a technique called intentional camera movement, or ICM as it's known. There was not a lot of post-processing other than some basic adjustments to exposure and contrast. It's a technique along with others I've used over the years, such as hand coloring, working with plastic cameras, infrared film, techniques that kind of create a dreamlike images that move the image from one strictly based in reality to something more ambiguous that allows for memory to come into play, which is very interesting because I ended up paired with Penny, who also has an interest in the concept of memory as a point of creation. And we ended up having some very nice exchanges going back and forth about just a memory in the images and what she saw. And I was so impressed that she was writing every day to create just the perfect poem to go with this. And I do love the poem. I love that little glimpse of a world that she creates. And also, you know, reading it today, it's so hot today, and that poem made me feel cold. So I love that, you know, it's capturing a very cold moment, but there's hope for the spring embedded in it too. So I really did enjoy the poem, and I enjoyed working with Penny, and I would ditto everyone that has said that, you know, they would hope to meet their poet in person someday, because I think we would do well together.
Penny, do you want to talk about the process at all? No, we can look at your poem because your poem is quite visual also, I think.
I think that I got very, very anxious, like, oh, I have to create a poem. That's good. And I decided I would just write a poem every, you know, really look at the photograph and write every day. And it was a wonderful thing to do. It really, the photograph really opened to me in all kinds of ways, just writing every day. But I think the first version of the first time I wrote a version of the Hansel and Gretel story. I was really interested in the photograph, and it was, I felt nervous. It seemed like the photograph showed winter and summer all at once. I was very, very interested in that. Sort of time, two different times at once. And that's why I kind of explored that in the writing. But I love that. I really grew to love the photograph more and more as I wrote with it. It is really, and I was glad that you told me that you want the imagination to come into play, to sort of interact with the image, because I was definitely doing that. There's lots of questions I have. I think you took the photograph in winter.
Mhm.
So how was it that all that lush green is behind the winter trees, and also that red lining? So that's really evocative, where the water meets the trees.
It was a very cold, wintry day, and those red lines are the branches and stems of some growth. But there were some evergreens in the back that gave it some depth to the greenery. It was late winter. You could feel, spring trying to push through, but not quite there yet. There was still ice. There was someone doing ice fishing in the middle of the lake, so not quite spring.
Yeah, the technique creates, like you're talking about, Penny, the ghosts of multiple seasons, which is interesting. And thank you both for being a part of the show. And, both pieces are beautiful, and we're very lucky to be showing them. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And next, Ilya Shur, are you here? I believe you're here on a different, under a different name. If you could please unmute yourself.
Yes, I'm here.
Great. And hello. And then
Hello.
Adriana, are you here?
I am here.
Great. Could you start by reading your poem?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Who knew what they tore apart and buried were the daughters of displaced light? That if you traced with a stick the movement of a spade cut deepening the cavity in a mouthful of shadow, shaking mixed clumps of drool and dirt from the brim of each slow ladle, arms full of everything there is to throw away, everything we grind in our teeth and swear to come back to, this would follow the lines in all their faces, lines seared and branded, lines of hope that only fall away down here. This body bent, body tightening, body letting go. And this body spent, body lightening, body letting go. Skin of bruised fruit flesh caving in and rotting out, a dirty, breathing thing, breathing through dirt and exhaling out, exhaling hot alarm, warning wailed in heat flash, code for factory reset on, code for system reset cannot be turned off. An offer to excavate the site where they first discovered fire could burn a thing. We hold this tired thing up to where we think the light might be. Our eyes have adjusted to the sight of thick lies and thick shadow, all right in front of our face. Above it all, there is wonder. Above it all, there is light. Above it all, there is nothing to reach. We hold this tired thing down to sleep.
Thank you, Adriana.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, could you talk a little bit about your work and your process?
Okay.
So first of all, it's great honor to be a part of these exhibitions. So many thanks at Mid-Hudson for organizing these exhibitions, and all the artists and the pros participating in this event. So secondly, I like to extend a special thanks to Adriana for creating a wonderful poll in response to my painting, Welcome to My Jungle. The poetry and the painting are both my favorites. In Asian China art theory, it has been said that poetry and the painting share the same origin. There's a painting in poetry just as there is poetry in painting. So I created this painting on a trip to Shanxi province in China. So I was fascinating always about some country, you know. One day I saw that tree that had a fall, and when I look closely at the roots, and then I saw the many I saw how much life was still there. That really helped me better understand that things are not always as they appear to be. So this is my stories about these paintings. So many thanks, everyone. Thanks for everything.
Thank you. And Adriana, do you have anything to say about your process writing the poem and your work?
I just wanted to say hi, Yue. It's so nice to see a face and, you know, like, wow, there's a whole other person out there. But yeah, so thank you so much for your work. It was absolutely inspiring. You know, I first saw this painting and like so many other poets, they were like immediately attracted to a painting. And this was that painting for me. I first seeing it, it was like, wait, what is going on here? It was like, it makes you feel uncomfortable, but also there's something like familiar about it. And so I was drawn to that sense of discomfort and comfort, and like, because yeah, there was it's interesting that you say it was inspired by a tree that you saw and the roots in it, because those were two of the images that kind of like, you know, first came to me. I was like, is this depicting the tree roots and like the people under the tree, this life under the tree? Or it also had this feeling of like factory to me. It felt really industrial. And so in my own work, I'm often really interested in the really fine line that the industrial and the natural world share with one another, especially in the Hudson Valley. We're surrounded by this relationship. And so, you know, you think of the tree, you think of life, and then, but the colors in it, there's no green, there's no pink, it doesn't have that, you know, the color palette that might suggest rebirth or, you know, beauty or, you know, and instead I'm like, wow, I love that you chose these neutral browns and blacks and the very kind of colors of nature that you'd see if, you know, everyone tells you to look up, but like maybe like look down and see what's happening down there too, because this was absolutely inspiring to me. So for me, I just kept looking at it. I kept looking at what you had painted, and it just, you know, just brought up so much for me. And then I got really interested in metallurgy through this painting. I like started learning about the process of like melting points for different metals, and especially like copper and the rust process. And so it brought up a lot of natural processes for me that we might not think about as much because they're a little dirtier. They're not as kind of like stereotypically pretty or however you might think of beauty. So for me, this was just gorgeous in this very raw industrial way. So I really, really thank you, Yue.
Thank you, Angela. Also, actually, I did a whole series about Welcome to My Jungle. So yeah, I was just fascinating with many country. So I travel a lot, and I just love the nature. Also, you know, the nature always inspired me. Yes. So Mother Nature is the most powerful thing.
Thank you both. Yes, thank you both so much for being in the show, and thanks again. Going. Great. Next up, we have Rachel Kleinman's piece. Are you here, Rachel?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
And I believe we also have Lisa St. John. Could you
Yes,
unmute
I'm here.
yourself?
Yep. Hello.
Great. Could you start by reading your poem, Lisa?
Sure. It's called Rule of Thumb. This life is a gentle one if you walk a foot behind the men. A world is coming undone. Teach your daughters, wear claws and run, or stay in the predator's pen. This life is a gentle one. Rape, not a hate crime? What then? A hit and run? She was wearing what? Well, then that world is coming undone. He didn't mean anything by it. It was just for fun. Locker room talk again. His life is a gentle one. Girls, this is old hand. Close your mouth, cut and run. A scar is a scar is a scar now and then. This world is coming undone. Unleash words, destroy the hush. Let's run loose in the night as in the day again. This life is a gentle one. Their world will come undone.
Thank you, Lisa. Rachel, could you talk a little bit about your painting?
Sure. So the title of the piece is Hush, and it's a depiction of a soul which has been silenced. I chose to depict only partial stitching on the subject's lips because this way it can be interpreted two different ways. On one hand, the stitching is self-inflicted as a means to hush themselves. And another more optimistic interpretation is viewing the stitching as unraveling. So as the subject looses the threads that bind them, they find the courage to break their self-inflicted silence. And so I thought that my poet gave the piece beautiful words and very beautiful words that I couldn't. So gave it life and strength and took somebody who's very damaged and vulnerable and allowed them to thrive in a newfound sense of freedom.
Thank you, Rachel. Lisa, do you have any thoughts about your work in the process?
Yes, that's really powerful. Thank you, Rachel. I had the same, you know, the initial, first I love monochromatic stuff, and I love ink drawings and charcoal and textury work, you know, and this really spoke to me with her eyelashes and again, the not all the way stitched up, right? So there's hope there's somewhere, or she's breaking free somehow. And so, you know, in this climate that we're living in, it's, I really wanted to write about that feeling of being kept under someone's thumb, you know, and kept silent and kept quiet, and what kind of world are we still living in, you know? And I decided to put it into a villanelle because a villanelle is a very tight, structured form, and is often a, you know, in the ancient world is like a love poem, right? So I wanted to use that irony, and I stayed with the rhyme structure and the rhyme scheme, but then just broke a little rule here and there with the villanelle. So that's part of the process, I guess, was that some people think of writing in form like a sonnet or a villanelle or something as being caged in, but really it's, you know, it's like a lattice on which you can really grow your roses. So I like writing in form, and I thought this was a great piece to play with that idea of trapped and breaking free at the same time.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing, both of you, for sharing your thoughts about your pieces. Anything else you want to let people know about, or?
No, I mean, I think we've all experienced what this painting is going through. So I wanted to create something that everybody can look at. And what is amazing about this painting is that it can represent two different times in your life. It could be that time where you are the victim and you have to maintain your silence. And then at some point, hopefully you can look at this a different way and see yourself as accepting and redemption. So
thank you both.
Yeah, there's a beautiful dichotomy here too between young and old somehow. You know, like the idea of storytelling, and that's how our culture moves on. And if you're not telling your story, if your mouth is sewn up, then where do the stories go, and how do we pass them on? And it's just a beautiful, beautiful piece.
thank you.
Thank you both. And I believe our next few artists are not here, but I'll just do a check. I know Crystal's not here because she let me know it's her birthday and she is out enjoying the day. So this is Crystal Yang's piece, Weeping Willow. Melanie Klein, are you here? I don't see your name. Melanie Klein responded to that painting with this poem, To the Willow. And then next, this piece is by Julie Mahaley. It's called Now Tattered Billboard with Face. Julie, are you here? I don't think so. And Wendy Insinger responded to that photograph. I don't think Wendy's here either. This painting as well by Felicidad Dukes is titled The Blue Vase. Felicidad, are you here? I think so. And Linda Macaulay Freeman wrote her The Blue Vase in response to that painting. And then we have our last pairing, and I know they're both here. So thanks for patiently waiting. And then we'll get you all on to this, enjoying this beautiful day. So of course, last but not least, this is Susan Henley's watercolor piece. Susan, could you unmute yourself?
Where are we? Okay, is that good?
Yes, and then Kathy, could you unmute yourself as well?
Yes. Hello.
Hey, Kathy, could you read your poem, please? And then I'll back to both of you.
Sure.
We are, John.
I kept the title of the painting, so it's called No Dumping. I'll wait patiently as parties pass by. Confetti sticks to my varnish as it hardens and yellows. But when the waters rise, I'll float, and the news I carry will be great enough to block this canal. A beaver dam of pure joy. Yet they make me wait, afraid my load, once dumped, would be too much to bear.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thanks.
Susan, could you talk a little bit about your piece here?
Sure. It's in a watercolor, and it was based on several photos when I was at the shore, Long Beach Island. It was an abandoned place, and I was kind of entranced with the fact that the boats were on the shore, not in the water, and I wasn't sure why, but they seemed kind of peaceful there. And yet, what was the story? I mean, it's a place where fishermen are just making a livelihood there, and it's
now, I must say, very unfortunate or fortunate, a huge a little playland for the public who I don't think really appreciate the fishing industry on the island, but that's my little 2 cents. It's a kind of a fabulous view of mountains and waterfalls and old pirate boats, and it has really replaced what I thought was kind of a feeling of what the island, Long Beach Island, was all about years ago. So I decided I would have to paint it, and that's it. I'm very impressed with Kathy's poem because she made up a story. It could be many stories, but this one was really good, very interesting. We never really discussed together the place or the reason, and I think it's admirable that she made a story out of it. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Kathy, could you tell us? Yeah, and I always think it's interesting because we don't really tell the artists and poets you have to talk to each other or you don't. And I think it's nice to have a range because you get different results when you're working separately and when you're working together.
Yeah.
Kathy, could you tell us a little bit about your
Sure.
process?
When I saw this painting, I was also curious about why they were on the shore instead of in the water, and there's at the time the canal was blocked by that huge freighter, which is why I put that story into this poem, and I really wanted to give that no dumping sign a different meaning, like it was meant for the boats and not for the people to dump on the land, like. So I really wanted to have the boats being told not to dump. And I was like, oh, this boat is being held here because they're afraid that it's going to dump something just so joyful that nobody could stand it anymore. And I didn't realize, I thought the Francis Anne was a boat going by that the other two boats would be jealous of. So I did kind of just, I guess, make them more anamorphic.
Terrific. You did a good job. I love it. Yeah.
That's good. That's so interesting. And thank you both for being in the show. Do either of you have anything else to add and anything coming up?
Susan?
Okay. I guess I'm first. I'm so honored that I was chosen, my painting was chosen to be in Art in the Loft, which is coming up. And
thank you for that plug.
It will be shown all summer. Yeah.
Yeah, I can tell you that we're getting ready to hang Art in the Loft at Millbrook Vineyards and Winery. All the artists dropped off their work, so that's going up next week, and we're going to be announcing any kind of event around it. We just wanted to get it up by Memorial Day weekend so that the public can see it, but we're still trying to navigate a in-person gathering for that show. So if you're interested in Arts Mid-Hudson Gallery events, just keep an eye on your email and you'll hear when there's an event for that show, or you can go down to Millbrook Vineyards and Winery after Memorial Day and see it in person and try out some of their wine.
I do want to say that this year I was a recipient of an individual artist grant for my Poet is In series, where I go to events, community events with my typewriter, and I write poems for people on the spot after a brief conversation. So look for me throughout the county this summer, and we'll have a reception in October at Queen City 15.
Thank you, Kathy. I was going to ask you to talk about that if you weren't. So we are really thrilled to fund Kathy for an individual artist commission this year for poetry. So follow her on her social media and stuff to get information about when she's popping up at those events. And Art in the Loft. And then for Arts Mid-Hudson members, we are going to have a member show call going out within the next probably next month or so. So look out for that. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can all see each other before we say goodbye. But thank you all for, being a part of this show. And for those of you that, are viewing the show and are interested, thank you so much for, appreciating all the effort that the artists and poets put into this endeavor. And it's a pleasure putting it together the past few years. So thank you all. And I hope this was a nice sun break for all of you. And I hope you all can get back out and enjoy the nice weather while we have it.
Thank you.
Thank
So,
you.
Thank you.
Great
Thank
show.
you very much. It's
good to
lovely.
see you all as always.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Ah.